HOA Karen cut off my son's life support power during the blizzard. Welcome to Dabsy Stories. Drop a like on the video and subscribe so we can continue making videos like this one. The first snow fell at dawn, icy flakes drifting onto the silent street. My son, Tyler, lay in the bedroom on a bi-level ventilator, each breath drawing labored air. He was 15 and had muscular dystrophy. This machine and a small oxygen concentrator were his lifeline. I checked the weather alert on my phone. Repeat, blizzard warning in effect. Stay indoors. Downstairs, my wife brewed coffee. We'll get through this, she whispered. I kissed her cheek and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. Outside, wind shrieked against window panes. At 7 a.m., a sharp knock echoed. I opened the front door to find Karen Peterson, HOA compliance officer, her face pale from cold. Her clipboard was slick with snow. You're drawing too much power, she said, voice clipped. HOA bylaws limit residential load during peak storms. I'm ordering an immediate shutoff of your supplemental line, or you'll face fines of $500 per day. I stared at her. Karen, my son's on life support. You can't cut his power. My heart pounded. I have permits. This line is inspected monthly. She tapped her pen. I enforce the rules equally. If you don't comply, I'll call the utility company. I felt panic rise. A sudden knock came from the garage. I stepped aside. My respirator electrician friend Mark hovered by the breaker box. I got the call, he said. She's holding you to bylaws over hospital-level care? He shook his head. I've got your code exemption, but you need the board's sign-off. Karen's lips thinned. Board approval is pending. Until then, no exceptions. I closed the door on her. The roar outside grew louder. I led Mark to the breaker. Help me keep Tyler alive. He flipped the switch for the auxiliary generator circuit I'd wired months ago, labeled emergency medical only. The lights flickered back. I raced upstairs, sweat beading my forehead. Tyler's eyes fluttered, then fixed on me. Power's back, I whispered. He nodded, too tired to smile. All day, wind battered the house. Neighbors huddled by fireplaces. Karen's SUV sat in her driveway, half buried by snow. I grabbed coats and headed out to confront her before nightfall. I found her shivering at the gate. Karen, I said, voice low, this is medical necessity. I'm on the city electrical board. I have authority to override HOA load restrictions for life support. She blinked, frost on her eyelashes. You didn't say. Her gaze darted to the buried breaker box. I'll notify the board. She turned to stomp back inside, clutching her clipboard. My fists clenched. Tomorrow I would bring her to the meeting and demand accountability. Tonight, I had to make sure the generator stayed fueled. Back inside, I filled the tank and checked connections. The generator hummed and Tyler's ventilator cycled smoothly. My wife wrapped a hand around mine. He's safe, she said. Outside, wind howled, but inside, our home pulsed with the steady hum of life. The night stretched long, each breath a precious victory. The morning after the storm, I felt raw with anger and fear. My son Tyler slept, the generator humming outside his window. I took a deep breath and went to shower off the panic. By mid-morning, the snowplows had cleared the street enough for me to drive. I headed straight to the HOA office, a small brick house at the end of the block. The wind rattled my car doors as I climbed out, clutching a folder of emergency power permits and the City Electrical Board's directive that life support circuits are exempt from HOA restrictions. Inside, Karen Peterson sat behind a desk stacked with clipboards and permits. She looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes. You again? She snapped, glancing at my folder. I laid it on her desk. This folder shows my electrical board exemption. Hospitals, clinics, home life support. My son's care line is protected under state law. You can't shut it off. Karen frowned, rifling through papers. Board says they'll review on Monday. Until then, power cuts stand. I leaned forward. Plot twist. Karen, I'm on the electrical board. I signed that exemption myself. I tapped my badge. You still enforce without checking? You broke the rules trying to hurt a child. Her face went white. She stammered. I didn't know. I forced myself calm. You ignored my calls. You ignored my messages. You ignored a dying boy's life for petty bylaws. Across the room, a new face appeared. Our HOA president, Mrs. Morales. She'd come to mediate. She cleared her throat. What's happening? I explained swiftly. Karen threatened to cut my son's power. I have proof of exemption. I have my board authority. Your officer is in contempt of life safety rules. Mrs. Morales looked to Karen. Is this true? Karen's eyes dropped. I thought what? I said softly. That you could play God over a dying boy? Karen's body shook. She pressed her lips shut. I felt neighbors pressed against the window, onlookers drawn by my car, the generator noise. My anger dwindled, replaced by pity. This woman, so obsessed with rules, had almost killed a child. Mrs. Morales closed her notebook. Effective now, Karen Peterson is suspended from enforcement duties. We will hold a special hearing Monday, but no more orders until then. Karen nodded, pale. She tucked her clipboard under her arm and fled through the back door. The wind carried her footsteps away. I stepped outside into bright winter light. My phone buzzed, a text from the hospice nurse. Your son's meds arrived early. I'll see you tonight. Relief washed through me. I drove home over snowy streets, mind buzzing. Tyler's steady breathing greeted me. I sank beside him, pulling his blanket tight. We did it, I whispered. That night, the generator's hum was a lullaby. The storm raged, but inside we found calm. Karen's overreach had failed. She would face the board and justice for threatening a life. Morning light slanted through the frosty window. Tyler's ventilator hummed steadily, powered by the backup generator in our garage. I sat beside him, holding his pale hand. He squeezed my finger once, twice, and closed his eyes. I pressed a kiss to his forehead and whispered, I'm here. Outside, the blizzard had turned to sleet. Ice coated the driveway. I wore my parka and snow boots as I trudged toward the kitchen. I needed coffee and a plan. The front door creaked when I opened it, revealing a small pile of mail half buried in snow. Among the letters was a court summons. Karen Peterson versus Daniel's family for contempt of HOA bylaws. The irony hit me. She was suing us for unauthorized load usage. I ripped open the envelope. The hearing was set for tomorrow morning at the community center. That meant little time to prepare. My mind raced. Gather evidence, call witnesses, find legal support. First, I called Fiona, our city electrical inspector. She answered on the second ring. Tell me you're not still dealing with Karen. Her voice crackled through the lines. I explained the generator hookup and emergency variants. She laughed softly. Send me your photos and permit. I'll testify. Karen has no clue about federal emergency rules. Relief washed over me. Next, I texted Mark, my electrician friend. He arrived within the hour, his truck tires crunching on ice. Inside, he carried boxes of wiring diagrams and inspection certificates. I rebuilt this circuit for you, he said, unpacking papers. I'll testify too. He set up a camera to film my generator panel and labeled circuits. The footage would make clear how the life support line was separate from normal loads. By afternoon, neighbors knocked on my door. Mrs. Chen delivered muffins. Mr. Sestai, Alvarez brought hot cocoa. We heard about the court date, he said, voice low. We'll all show up to support you. Even Mrs. Morales, the HOA president who'd backed down before, stopped by. I'll testify against Karen, she promised. My chest tightened with gratitude. People I never expected had seen the cruelty in Karen's actions and wanted to help. Back inside, I sat at the dining table beneath a single lamp and sorted my pile of documents. I stacked the inspection reports, the city variance, the court order bearing interference, and notes from my own electrical commissioner badge. I wrote a simple opening statement. Your Honor, I am Assistant Commissioner Daniels of the City Electrical Board. My son, Tyler, depends on life support. I obtained all proper permits under state and federal law. Karen Peterson, a private HOA officer, cut his power during an emergency storm. She violated a court order and endangered a child. I ask you to hold her in contempt and award us damages. I read those words out loud, voice shaking, then practiced until I could say them steadily. Each repetition filled me with resolve. Evening came. The wind rattled windows. Tyler stirred, his ventilator settings unchanged. I checked his oxygen levels, all normal. But I thought of Karen and the danger she posed if allowed her power trip to stand. I refused to let her hurt any other family. I tucked Tyler back under his blankets and sat beside him. Tomorrow, we face her in court, I said softly. He opened his eyes and managed a faint smile. Thank you, he mouthed. I kissed his hand. I've got you, I whispered. Later, I video called my lawyer, Sarah. She reviewed my opening and timeline. This is solid, she said. Your witnesses will seal it. Expect a quick ruling. Relief and exhaustion tangled in my chest. That night, I barely slept. I dreamed of the generator threadbare fuses blowing, of Karen's icy stare, of Tyler gasping without power. I woke before dawn, heart pounding. I looked over at Tyler, breathing evenly. Guilt and love twisted within me. I had to win. Not for myself, not for my license, but for my son's life. Outside, the snow had stopped. The dawn sky was pale blue. I dressed in my suit, the one I wore to board meetings, and prepared my documents. Neighbors arrived in cars, shoveling paths through the snow. We headed to the community center together, a silent convoy of support. I lifted Tyler's wheelchair into the back of Sarah's SUV, strapped him in, and climbed in beside him. A final glance at the generator panel through the frost-smeared window reminded me the lines of law and life should never cross. Courtroom 3 was packed with neighbors in parkas, their breaths fogging in the cold air as they huddled around folding chairs. I sat beside my lawyer, Sarah Nguyen, and behind us, Tyler's hospice nurse held his wheelchair steady. Across the aisle, Karen Peterson perched in the defendant's chair, shivering in thin slacks and a cotton blouse unsuited for winter. The judge entered, her gavel tapping once, twice, then silence. The prosecutor opened. "Your Honor, we will show that Miss Peterson willfully violated a court order and state public health law by cutting power to a minor on life support during a declared state of emergency." He called Fiona, the city electrical inspector. Fiona described how she certified our emergency circuit and how Karen ignored statutory exemptions. She presented charts showing line diagrams and stamped inspection slips, evidence that Karen's bylaw enforcement directly defied state law. Next, Mark, my electrician friend, took the stand. He explained the custom wiring for Tyler's ventilator circuit, how it was separate and protected. He displayed video footage of Karen physically removing the meter's seal and ordering the generator cut off. Neighbors murmured when they saw her hand on the meter box, her face calm even as Tyler's machine went dark. Then Karen's own board president, Mrs. Morales, testified. Her voice trembled as she recounted how Karen had refused to accept the executive board's emergency variance until after Sarah served the restraining order. "I feared for Tyler's life," Morales said. "I asked Karen to stand down. She refused." Karen finally took the stand, her shoulders stooped. The judge's eyes softened as Karen confessed. "I thought I was protecting the community from overloaded lines. I didn't realize the law allowed that circuit. I was wrong." Her voice cracked. But the judge's expression hardened again at the prosecutor's closing. Negligence endangering a child, defiance of a court order, and tampering with life safety equipment are serious crimes. The judge leaned forward. "Miss Peterson, your actions constituted misdemeanor child endangerment and contempt of court. You endangered a minor's life." She paused. "I sentence you to 90 days in county jail, suspended to 60 days served in the sheriff's work release program, and 200 hours of community service with the Red Cross for emergency response training. You're also fined $25,000 payable to the Daniels family for legal and medical expenses." A collective intake of breath swept the room. Karen's jaw dropped. Deputies stood and cuffed her. She blinked up at Tyler, who gave the faintest nod of triumph. Neighbors stood and applauded softly. Outside, the blizzard's aftermath glistened on the courthouse steps. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Mrs. Chen hugged me. Mr. Alvarez shook my hand. Fiona waved from her patrol car. I edged forward to where Tyler sat, his ventilator humming safely beside him. "Mom," he whispered. "Thank you." I kissed his forehead. "Always, kiddo. Always." Karen was led down the steps, her face pale, the weight of her arrogance replaced by the hollow clank of handcuffs. She glanced back once, eyes meeting Tyler's, and lowered her gaze. The wind stung my cheeks as I rolled Tyler toward the car. The generator in our driveway, recently inspected and tagged, would keep his life support running through any storm. Justice had been served. Later, at home, I taped the judge's order to the living room wall above the generator switch. It read, "Emergency life support circuits exempt from HOA enforcement." Every time I glanced at it, I'd remember that rules exist to protect life, not crush it. As dusk settled, I wheeled Tyler to his window seat. He gazed at the glowing streetlights, the powered-on porch lights, the neighbor's Christmas tree still bright despite the storm. He smiled, a real tired smile. "Power on," he murmured. I nodded. "Power always on." The end.